Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today's webinar. I'm Laura Milojevic. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify. Today, we're excited to have our managing partner, Jon Essig, discussing and demoing how FP&A can turn pipeline into sales. Also, when the webinar concludes, a short survey is going to appear. So if you please could, we would really appreciate if you're able to fill that out. And as always, feel free to reach out to Jon or myself with any questions. And now we'll get started. I'll hand it over to Jon. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So we'll start with a really quick intro of Simplify and planning in SAP Analytics Cloud, and we'll jump right into our demonstration and content around CRM, sales planning, and analytics. And we'll talk about a couple example customer use cases. So Simplify, who are we? So we're a firm of really process-focused individuals from a finance and analytics perspective, business process experts. We're dedicated working on the SAP technology stack. We have offices in Chicago, Montreal, primarily from a product perspective. Today we're working with SAP Analytics Cloud. Also on the integration side, we do work with BW, HANA, working more with SAP Data Warehouse Cloud as well. And we're really a go-to partner for SAP Analytics and planning. We provide implementation services, process engineering, design, staffing managed services in an ongoing perspective. And then we also pre-package our content to help companies see, more accelerated deployment. So this is an example of some of our customers. We work with, companies anywhere from mid-market size all the way to really large enterprise. And our number one focus as a company is on our client relationships as 100% referenceability. So, there are firms that put profit above this, and for us, we strongly believe that if we keep this as our number one tenet, profit and other things will follow, and they have. So we commonly work with companies across, we'll do big bang implementations like with Wolverine over a year, where we're delivering, end-to-end planning, 6 or 7 different apps, or with like a Pfizer, for example, a $70 billion company, we deliver this across many different phases, right? A lot of different applications for their business. So we can start small and help you take advantage of a lot of processes, long term that we can assist with as well, or we can start big. This just gives you a quick overview of the FP&A capabilities specific to SAP Analytics Cloud. So you can use this solution for really end-to-end annual planning, forecasting from a monthly basis, simulation, what-if scenario modeling, as well as this is SAP's strategic solution for all of reporting and analytics, even getting into operational analytics all the way to consolidated reporting as well. This is the tool that sits on top of SAP's strategic solution for consolidations group reporting, which is also a solution that we implement. Throughout many years implementing a lot of different planning and analytics and reporting modules, there's a lot that differs industry to industry. But from a finance perspective, from a planning perspective, there's a lot that companies really have in common, and there's no reason that when we go to build a sales planning module or a CRM module that we need to start from a blank slate each time. So we've taken what we've learned over a decade plus of implementing these processes with the SAP technology, and we've built all these accelerators. So we've spent thousands of hours building this content that companies can leverage to springboard their design and deployment cycles. So really today, what are we focused on? We're focused on CRM planning and analytics. So how can you as an organization get more value from a reporting and analytics perspective, and as well as from a planning side of things on the data that exists in your underlying CRM system. So when you look at taking, factoring pipeline information, using that for reporting, using that to seed our forecast, using that to seed our plan. In addition to that, we layer into that book business to be able to create a complete sales and revenue plan that then feeds into your balance sheet and P&L and cash flow financial statements. This is obviously one side of it. On the other side of it, you have our expense plan. So this just kind of shows how this solution fits into an overall typical architecture for a company. So just a quick overview on the prepackaged content that we have and the use cases, and then we'll jump right into the demo. So our prepackaged content includes a lot of the analytics and planning capabilities that any typical organization that uses CRM to track opportunities would want to be able to take advantage of. So we can look at reporting and analytics for pipeline, for sales attainment. We can look at different KPIs from a performance perspective, like sales conversion, cycle time, etc. This solution handles your quota planning as well as your quota maintenance, your sales forecast on a monthly basis, as well as can be utilized for annual plan. And then this has pre-configured modeling and dimensionality in it for your sales organizations, opportunities, products, deal stages, right? So, this isn't a relational tool. This is an Olap model. So when we use this dimensionality that would hook right into your CRM system as well as your transactional accounting systems, we can leverage those structures and build dimensionality so that it's really easy to slice and dice this data. So you're not creating hundreds of relational reports for every single requirement. You've got this nice clean model that's very easy to analyze and plan on top of. So this is built on top of this prepackaged solution, as well as the rest of our content is built on top of SAP Analytics Cloud, and then also integrates back again, as I showed earlier, with your financial plan to help you drive more accuracy and can help you track opportunities all the way from when they close to even past that into revenue recognition when you match it up with your financial data. So again, when you look at CRM systems underlying, what's the purpose of that system is it's used to track, opportunity and measure your effectiveness. And what we're doing is really taking that to the next level from an analytics reporting and planning perspective to get a lot more value out of that investment. Provide you one integrated solution when you look at sales performance as well as planning and quota maintenance. So this is the general architecture of the solution. So we have our application here, our one central repository for our sales and pipeline analytics and planning scenarios. So feeding into this is our actual sales data, whether this is coming from your CRM system or another transactional system. We have our deal counts, our actual sales, our attainment information. We have our opportunity snapshots. So we can actually take, snapshots ad hoc at whatever point makes sense. At a minimum, we can take snapshots of our opportunity CRM data on a monthly basis, maybe, day 5, day 6 of your close at a standard time before you go into your forecast cycle. And we can also take weekly snapshots of your opportunities and hold that data. So you can look at, changes to those over time as well. And coming out of these snapshots, we have our summary counts as well as our detail. So we're actually pulling in, opportunity level of detail into our model where we can drill into even line item level of information, right? So that's one of the value points of having this sit on top of SAP's HANA platform is, we can really handle these large data sets quite well. We don't have to lose that when we go and look at this from an analytics perspective. So we have our opportunity snapshots feeding into this model. We have our sales attainment feeding into this model. We also are using this model to build out our quota plan as well as maintain our quota. And tie that back to our annual operating plan. And then we're using this model to build up our forecast and plan on a monthly basis. And then in addition to that, this is SAP Analytics Cloud, which this solution sits on top of, is SAP's strategic solution for predictive planning as well. So one of the things that's neat is when we pull in this opportunity level of detail, we can actually use the SAP engine to look at different deals and understand and capture and apply, win rates based off of a defined, stratification that we have of the opportunities. So we can look at, our opportunities by sales team. We can look at it by deal stages. We can look at it by forecast categories, and we can utilize that to help us not only capture historical win rates, but then use it to predict future win rates, run regression analysis on those key stratifications, and then apply those factors to our pipeline ultimately, so that we can take those forecasted win rates, apply it to our sales pipeline, and use that to calculate a weighted pipeline, which then feeds into our forecast, right, as to what we're actually expecting to close at the end of the day. So this just highlights the content in general that's available within the solution. So we have this launch pad, which takes us through the quota planning process, which hooks up to our annual planning process, takes us through the monthly administration of the solution and planning and forecasting, as well as sales performance and analytics, right? So we'll share that in the solution, so I won't spend too much more time here. The solution does include really, end to end. We have our workflows that kind of guide us through the different steps from a planning and analytics perspective. We have pre-configured stories that come out of the box with the solution that you can leverage, very quickly and get up and running on this, within weeks, just leveraging our standard content out of the box, or, we can build this exactly to your specification and, spend months doing that, right? So it depends upon the size of your organization, what's going to make sense. But even with really large enterprise companies, we've seen them start with a low configuration approach right away to get comfortable with the tool, and then they look at cost benefit analysis and deploy it to their specifications, based off of how it makes sense. So you have all these stories and all these reports and planning templates available to you out of the box as a starting point. You have standard models and dimensionality that have been utilized across many different companies, across different industries, that you don't have to design this stuff from scratch either, right? You could spend months just trying to figure out how to conceptualize and put this into a model, and we've already done that for you, right? We also have standard calculations, so you look at calculating weighted sales based off our win rate, our KPI calculations for win rate and close rates when we look at analytics, cycle time, deal size, counts, right? So I have a number of pre-configured KPIs in here as well. And then this can integrate with any CRM system, really. Obviously, we have special knowledge, integrating this with SAP C4. We also have integrated this on top of Salesforce. So a lot of these structures for those two sources we know works very well, right? However, again, we can integrate this with any structured CRM source. So we have our master data views for our sales organizations and our sales teams, our sales offices, right? That all just pull in automatically into this solution, our sales codes. And then we also have our CRM transactional data views, again, which we're pulling in to our model, which includes our opportunity snapshots, our sales, our counts, which are separate sources to provide us that data summarized for analytics. And then again, our product and detailed customer information. So there's this integration framework that's already set. There's a lot of modeling that happens within these views to prepare it for our prepackaged solution, and that's something that we have experience and content to help accelerate that on too. This is a key solution for Simplify. It's one of our prepackaged solutions that we're continuing to make an investment in from a roadmap perspective. So one of the things that we're doing this Q2 is we're adding client partner information dimensionality into our model based off of what we've seen make sense for our customers, so that they can capture client partner as a distinct dimension and report off of that information based off of what deal closed at that point in time, so we don't lose that history, right? So this is an example of an enhancement. Other enhancements we're looking at making yet in 2021. Revenue recognition assumptions. So we have content already that helps us take our sales and translate that based off revenue recognition into revenue. It's not related specifically to this application. So what we're looking to do is take a lot of those concepts that we've utilized elsewhere and apply it and deploy it in this application to help companies not only, capture and report off their sales, but in a more systematic, better from a better process perspective, translate their sales to revenue and have insights into those drivers, and have a better, more automated process for that. And then we're continuously monitoring this, with our active implementations for, customer requested enhancements, and then integration with their other content, for example, with professional services, which for firms doing professional services, this content is very, very relevant. It goes hand in hand with their resource planning and book business planning. So we'll share just a couple customer use cases. So this is a project where we did more of a low to medium configuration approach for a professional services firm with around, just a little over 1,000 employees. So they are, again, more taking a low to medium configuration, so pretty quick implementation, where, they're going from an Excel-driven process today, where they're doing a lot of this, very manually, extracting this data out of CRM into Excel, following a lot of the same processes we'll show you in the demo, and we're taking that and making this much more streamlined and automated for them, to decrease their monthly forecasting cycles and give them better visibility and analytics at the end of the day. So this solution is fully integrated with SAP C4. It's used to develop monthly reporting forecasts, annual plan, and this is another example case study. The large transaction processing and software company, Fiserv, $70 billion company. So for them, we more built this solution on top of SAP per their specification. So as opposed to, a couple month implementation, this is, a 6-month implementation, but still live over, 100 plus sales managers. They have, 2,000 plus account executives that, all have their individual quotas loaded into the system, that then they're then comparing their actual sales attainment in the tool versus their quota. They're doing monthly forecasting and factoring of their pipeline and using that to seed their forecast, and then planning within the solution that we built for them, as well as annual plan. So this is an example of where we've integrated this end to end as opposed to C4 with Salesforce, right? All right, so that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demonstration. So what you see in front of you is SAP Analytics Cloud, the Google Chrome interface. So this is really easy for business users to interact with. We have this home page here where we have tiles that can be pushed out to based off of specific user views, but I can also pin certain graphs and things that I'm interested in from a user perspective. I have any recent stories or templates that we've opened into. So an example relevant, we've got our headcount. We also have our CRM and opportunity data here, looking at our weighted pipeline. This is again SAP's one strategic solution for all of analytics and planning across the platform. So obviously, again, the CRM module that we're covering today is one small component of what you can do with the tool. Just to give you a quick overview of the solution in general, or of the tool, before we get into the specific solution. So this is again SAP strategic solution for analytics, planning, and predictive scenarios. So these predictive scenarios are where we can run our advanced regression analysis and do opportunity scoring and try to get additional insights into what different deals are going to close. From previous clients that we've worked with historically, we see a lot of times these leading indicators of when we look at opportunity data, maybe the actual customer relationship that you have in place there might be the executive that's aligned from a sponsorship perspective as well. Goes down to individual products as well as individual sales reps that are driving the different deal win ratios and things like that to help us, predict more accuracy as far as what's going to close, but then also to give us more insight into how we can be more effective from a sales perspective in general. So it has this predictive component into it. It is SAP's analytics solution, so that's what these stories is where all your reports and planning templates are held. You have these analytic applications, so if you want to get fancy and you have a piece of paper that you want to build a dashboard or a planning scenario, exactly the way you want to see it. You can, code it if you want, but all the content that we're using within our prepackaged solution here is using standard functionality, right? So these are things that a business user could build. You don't have to be, super techy to do. This is also SAP's platform for digital boardroom. So any of the analytics, in fact, these visualizations and charts and everything you see here are natively touch responsive. But these stories that you create can also be viewed on big, screen touch responsive, where you want to click into and look at a specific a specific business outcome and drill into it and understand what's driving that. You can do that with this digital boardroom sitting on top of SAP Analytics Cloud, which is just an appliance, right? You have data sets, so if you want to do relational modeling, you have some capability to do that here. Our planning models and analytics models, these are the Olap models. So this is more traditionally what you would see as a planning and analytics with a Hyperion or an SAP. These relational data sets are more like SQL type modeling that you have available within the tool. You have this calculation engine in SAP Analytics Cloud that basically can take any type of formula that you could create in Excel, you can create in here and use the tool to actually streamline these calculations. You have allocation capabilities, and then you have calendar and workflows. So if you want to assign out a forecast update, you can do that. On day 3, it'll publish the exact template to your sales managers that you want them to update. Then they hit complete. You can have visibility into what sales managers have completed their updated forecast, right? And then for the ones that haven't, you can actually send them automated reminders. So we're not going to cover this in detail, but it's a nice functionality that a lot of our customers are using. So I'm going to click on our catalog here, which has a lot of our different prepackaged solutions. Again, we're going to focus on CRM, but if we clicked into our finance dashboard, we could look into our expense, our HR, our capital planning, our margin and costing and different planning. But again, we'll focus on our CRM solution here today. So I'm just clicking into our launch pad here, which then has additional links to each one of our individual processes. So we have a link to our quota planning and maintenance, to our monthly administration and plan and forecast, as well as then to our sales and performance reporting at the end of the day. So we're going to start with the quota planning step here. So your sales VPs, your sales managers would be the ones performing the quota planning step, which would then need to be also aligned with your annual operating plan, right? Lauren, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you again.
Thanks. So yeah, this would need to be aligned with your annual operating plan, right? So we actually have in this template, we have our budget, our operating plan. This is looking at our next out year for 2020. So we have our total planned sales, and we have that really by our different divisions. So we have our corporate, our middle market, our enterprise, and then getting into our different segments underneath here as well, high growth versus large business, right? But as we click into our annual operating plan, we don't have detail down to individual quotas, right? So now as we're assigning out our quota as an organization, we can come in and make selections here. We may be, in charge of example for our enterprise sales segment and or division. We can click into high growth and we look at our overall plan of 48 million here, which is a little bit different than our 48.96, so I guess we're about 68K off. But here we've actually already seeded our quota and then made some changes with it. But one of the things that's neat within this tool is we have these data actions. So we can actually click this seed quota plan, and what that's going to do is it's going to take our annual budget and it's going to automatically allocate our quota based off of either our historical actual data, or we could even use our prior year quota as a baseline to allocate our plan data, which we need to tie down to our individual quota here. So we've already performed that first step here, and we've made some changes, and we can, we could be planning this at an annual level and distributing this down to individual months based off of the, defined seasonality that we want to have in the system. That's really up to us to plan this, however we want. But this is both a, reporting template as well as a vehicle to plan inputs. So if we want to go by individual salesperson and key in, distribute our quota by month or by quarter, we can do that. We simply just, key in the value that we want to see. You can see SAP Analytics Cloud is going to automatically update this right away with the subtotals here. You could see actually when I keyed in that number, it's distributed that number back down into even a further level of granularity that we have for details around different products and segment information based off of our historical makeup and targets here. So this is a pretty flexible solution. So once we have our individual quota plan here, we can come back and take a look at, okay, does this tie to our annual operating plan? If we were off, just very slightly, we could actually even, come in here and type in the total number that we want to see. And this is going to disaggregate that difference back down to our months as well as back down to our individual salespeople, right? So this is simply a vehicle that's integrated with our annual budgeting process that allows us to go and plan quota. And as we make these updates, our quota plan is then visible to everyone who has access from an organization perspective. You may have this secured based off of your sales team and sales role structures, right, as well. So if you were responsible for enterprise sales, you may only see enterprise sales. So it's just dependent upon that security configuration and sensitivity that you have within your organization. So if I click on total sales, and I can see this at the macro level as well. We have, as we're building up, our quota plan, we also have just some simple kind of analytics and visualizations to understand, if we look at our prior year actual versus our quota for this year, where we're seeing, increases or stretch areas specifically for us, within an enterprise sales area. We can see our changes from our quota versus our actual as well here. So that's a pretty simple process in itself up front. And then as we are building up our forecasts, as we're reviewing our results as they're coming through, we have all this data in one place so we can immediately compare it to our quota and look at our attainment in addition to that. One of the other pain points for organizations is quota maintenance process. So, as you have changes throughout the year, as you have, new employees, new hires, that doesn't necessarily mean that, your quota is still what your quota is, unless there's other changes here. So, for example, if you want to plan, for account reassignments, you can do that within this tool. So, if you had, house accounts that have been, reassigned to our sales rep, George Clooney here, right? You can track that each month as you make changes to your quota maintenance, so that's reflected in your system from a reporting perspective here too. So here we've simply just reclassed our quota assignment from our house account to George Clooney, and then you can even, make comments in here in addition. So if we come to our current month, if we had another different type of quota adjustment or another, maybe, starting in July, those accounts that were reassigned, maybe we're going to split them between George Clooney and Brad Pitt, right? So this is how we would reassign that quota. We would just simply, type that in. We can, this is Excel-like, right? So we can actually just, copy that back and forth. Then we could type that in for Brad Pitt, copy that over, and we're just wanting to make sure that our maintenance adjustments here actually, tie out and should all net to zero at the end of the day. So at the top level, these should net out. We can put a comment in here. We could say, the specific account, and then we have that history based off of, captured based off of the month we made that change. And then we just simply have a validation report, so you can look at this across the organization. You can see all of your quota adjustments throughout, and you can just make sure that they're netting to zero unless there was an agreed upon change in total. So that's the quota planning process. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Next, we want to get into our monthly performance reporting. So I'll first click into our pipeline view here. And then next we'll look at some of our different KPIs as well as our attainment information. So this first view is looking at our most recent snapshot of our pipeline data. So here we're actually looking at weighted sales, and based off of the sales role that we're looking at, so we could look individually at individual sales people. We could look at the individual sales teams. We'll use this example of enterprise sales again. You'll see for enterprise sales, we have our top 10 opportunities that have been updated, our weighted sales numbers. We see that our history data of our historical snapshot data and our actuals, and then we see our out months of our weighted sales based off of the expected close dates that we have. You see when I change the enterprise sales, also our different visualizations and things all updated dynamically here. So we'll actually drill into our enterprise sales segment, and using those structures, we can then look at this by high growth versus large business, right? We could pivot in here and just focus on specific deal stages. So if we wanted to kind of narrow in and look at deal stages, 3 through 6 or 3 through 7, we can do that and just focus on those opportunities and ignore some of the early on opportunities that are available within here. We're looking at weighted sales. We could change this and just pivot this very quickly and look at sales figures as well, and then we could see all these figures based off of the stage that they're in addition to that. So when we look at this underlying model, if I hit edit here, we can actually see on the right hand side of the screen this grid with our opportunity data with our top 10 here. This is essentially a pivot table, right? So there's no programming or SQL code or anything. This is the hard work is in the modeling. It's done up front. So the end user reporting here is really, really simple. So you want to see opportunity data, you just pivot opportunity and drag that into the rows, and you can look at that by customer, or you could change this, and we could remove customer from here, and we could actually add product detail into here. So and we could drill into that as well. So this is really, really dynamic. We have our different filters, and we could add things in the columns, right? It's pretty much like a pivot table on steroids, right? So you can use this for finished polished reporting as well as for ad hoc analysis. So that's an example of our opportunity data. And next, if we want to look at for the current month, our deals that have actually been closed, and look at some kind of KPIs to see how we've been performing for the month, we can do that. So now we're focused on our from a sales perspective on what deals that we've won this month. We can look at our average deal size, and we can compare these things based off of our history versus what happened last year, or based off of different planning scenarios. We see our average cycle time. We can check out our win rates, our conversion rates, and compare that as well. And all of this has that same dimensionality within the model. So if we want to pivot and look at specific products or product lines and focus in on professional services, we can see how we're performing there with our win rates, conversion rates, our cycle times, and how that differs, for example, versus data processing where our deal sizes are very different. Where our won deals and our win rates, conversion rates are differing also here as well. So here we're looking at the first half of our year, coming through. I think this is through May or June, right? We could pivot and look specifically at Q1 versus the distributed quota that we have in here, or we could just be looking at the current month of data, right? And then lastly here, and again, I mean, we have created, tons of different report books and information that you can publish, based off this underlying model, really specific to the customer requirements. But these are nice kind of starting points for you, at least from the analytics perspective. We look at like sales attainment and look at our sales versus the quota that we have planned in the solution. And again, same kind of concept here. We can pivot based off our different divisions, based off our sales teams, our products. We can even drill into specific, specific opportunities here if you wanted to, although that's not relevant to quota, right? But so you can see, how we're performing versus our original quota and how much further we need to go. All right, so next one, I'll take a look at our planning and forecasting process, as well as our monthly administration of the tool. What do we need to do on an ongoing basis to provide this reporting, as well as how are we building up our forecast in here. So for international companies, this is a solution that can also take your local currencies and translate them into your reporting currencies, so that you have one view of your consolidated sales and pipeline data internationally, right? So that in itself can be a big pain point for companies when they go to look at reporting against this. Also, on a monthly basis, from your CRM system, we're updating the opportunity and sales data for you automatically. So that these structures, none of this master data, these aren't things that you need to maintain, right? There's jobs that run that pull it from CRM. Every single opportunity that you're entering in CRM is then being replicated here for easy analytics and planning purposes. You have your loading of your current month actual sales, as well as your opportunity sales. And then, you can validate your snapshots and calculate weighted pipeline. So this might be calculated in your CRM system. But you may want to apply some additional intelligence to, based off what we talked about earlier, to help drive more accuracy with the win rates that you're planning on that. So you can utilize a solution such as this to help predict better win rates, as well as then to apply that and come up with a factored, factored pipeline sales numbers, weighted sales numbers. And then ultimately, after we've done these administrative steps, we can then publish the forecast, so our sales managers, directors, VPs can then update it with their adjustments based off of the pipeline. And again, all of this is looking at, planning our existing pipeline. In addition to that, we have steps for layering in and planning for new expected business. So when we look at our plan throughout the entire year, one step is taking our current pipeline, adding new expected business to that, and then the last step, which isn't contemplated in this solution, is then looking at your existing book business, which then you would layer into that in a separate model. So one other thing I would mention as part of this setup is, we have these data actions again, where we can, automatically for you calculate the weighted pipeline. But then we're also then taking that opportunity snapshot, and we're actually copying that into a forecast or planning version, where then you can apply your adjustments. To it. So let's start with this review of our factored pipeline. So this is in a fair amount of granularity here. We're going to look at these management adjustments. So we have some KPIs and things, from a macro perspective, looking at our weighted sales actual versus forecast, by individual quarter. From a planning perspective, you're typically, again, going to be doing this at a sales manager, segment, division type level. So let's just look at, our enterprise sales example again. And we see that by our individual different, product product streams that we're looking at. We can also then click into and drill into our sales codes and look at this versus growth business versus new clients. And then we can look at this monthly. So this monthly detail, the reason we have a couple columns here is we see the opportunities, for example, for January, and these are weighted based off of our expected win rates. And we see it for February, March, April, etc. here. So we could be looking at this plan at a quarterly basis and then drill into the months. It just depends on how you want to view this. But you're going to plan this at whatever lowest level of granularity makes sense for you as a business. So maybe it's by product, maybe it's by sales code as well as by sales team, right? So once you have those numbers in front of you, what's factored coming out of your CRM system, then just like in the other planning templates, you're going to go in and you're going to key in here an actual adjustment to your factored pipeline, and then that's going to adjust your total. So once you've keyed that in and made any changes, any management adjustments to the pipeline data that you have, then you're just going to go ahead and publish that, right, like we saw in the other templates. So this is that input vehicle. So you can use this for your 100+ sales managers to come into this tool, to take their pipeline data, to make their adjustments, submit that, and you have a global view available to you immediately, a regional view, segment view. And then we also just have some analytic, if we want to take a look at from a macro perspective as opposed to the detail, for enterprise sales for this division or segment, how we're doing for the current month, quarter, versus our what we have to date, as well as our forecast data out in the out months, plus our new business plan, which gives us our total plan at the end of the day. So, and how our forecast is performing versus our prior year actual. So that's the forecast process there. In addition to that, like I said, we can plan new business on top of that, and then we can review and ultimately sign off on that data at the end of the day. All right, so I know that was a lot in 45 minutes, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of the capabilities of this solution from a quota planning perspective, forecast and plan, as well as performance and predictive functionality altogether. We'd be happy to dive into this deeper with organizations where you have interest around this to help you understand how you could apply a lot of these concepts back to your business. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, and I'll defer back to Lauren in case we have any questions. And please, feel free to reach out to contact@simplifysolutions.com if you'd like any further information. Lauren, are there any questions that we'd like to address before we wrap up here? Right, just so as far as implementation time, like I was saying earlier, with these prepackaged solutions, we typically, we can do a low config approach, a medium config, or build to your specification, right? So, we can deploy this content in a matter of weeks to get you started, and a typical low to medium implementation, like we shared earlier, might be a couple months. And then build to your specification might be 6 months, right? So it really is just going to vary based off your business, your size, your complexity, and where the cost benefit analysis, kind of how far that extends. So all right, well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everyone for joining today, and please again feel free to reach out with any questions.